Hi, we're Quaint and Curious Volumes. My name is James. Today is Tuesday, and that's a tag Tuesday, as you probably know. So I'm going to do the tag that a bunch of my friends have done, which is 10 untouched books. And the idea of this tag is that you show 10 books that have been on your TBR for a year or more. So things that you really ought to get to, but you haven't. So I'm I didn't plan. I didn't make a stack ahead of time, but I'm standing in front of my bookcase, one of my bookcases, and I know people really seem to enjoy it when I reach up into the camera and pull books off the shelf. So that's what you're gonna get, giving the people what they want. I'm gonna start way up here on the upper left, and this is a modern library classic, one of these compact, almost square little books that I really like. And it's The Education of Henry Adams. And it's in a dust jacket, which is in pretty good condition. I should put a plastic cover on it or something. But Henry Adams was at one time a pretty well-known author. He wrote a history of the United States. He was a descendant of President John Adams and President John Quincy Adams. Um, I know that my booktube friend David Novak has done a lot of videos on Henry Adams's history of the United States. This has a little book plate in it. I'll cover the old owner's name, but it has this cool shell design on it. And yeah, someday I'm going to read this. It's a really cool book, and I have a small collection of this old modern library format. Let me show you another one of those. I don't know if this is necessarily on my TBR, but it is something I've had for more than a year. It's The Ordeal of Richard Feverel by George Meredith. George Meredith apparently at one time was a big deal. You hardly hear him talked about now. Let me read the inside copy about this. Enthusiasts for the novels of George Meredith stand firm in their preference for The Ordeal of Richard Feverel. That's the book I have. Um, Unanimously, they agree that this study of adolescence is more than a penetrating psychological document. It is a vivid and absorbing dramatization of the conflict between two generations made memorable by a glowing passion. After the first edition of The Ordeal of Richard Feverel, several passages essential to its full appreciation were deleted. God. These have been entirely restored to the modern library version. Whew, that was close. Anyway, have you read this? Have you heard of it? I know some of you have heard of it, but uh, what do you make of that? That sounds like a pretty good book. Uh, let's just read the first little bit. The Pilgrim's Script, Chapter 1. Some years ago was printed and published anonymously, dedicated to the author's enemies, a small book of original aphorisms under the heading The Pilgrim's Script. The book was noticeable for its quaint earnestness. So far, this is not uh, quaint earnestness and a perversity of view regarding women, whom the writer seldom extolled and appeared with all conscience to rank as creatures still doing service to the serpent, bound to their instincts and well, we don't need to go on with any more of that. Anyway, so that's two. Let's go on to number three. Here's a Willa Cather. This is the only Willa Cather in my collection that I have not read yet. It's The Professor's House. Clearly a work of dark academia. Maybe not. But I've enjoyed every Willa Cather that I've read, so someday I will get to that one. Let's see. Here is another one that David Novak read recently. It's Season of Migration to the North by Tayyib Salih, with an introduction by Layla Lalami. I read one of her books. She's pretty good. And it's translated from the Arabic by Dennis Johnson Davies. I David Novak spoke very highly of this. It's a short book, and I hope that I will find the time to read it sometime soon. It's not showing up very well. I've got terrible lighting on this channel. So that is 4. Sorry. Let's see. I have. Here's one. I'm familiar with the works of Pablo Neruda, but maybe not this one. I actually read this many years ago, but not this book, not this particular copy, and I've had it for more than a year. It's 20 Love Poems and a Song of Despair by Pablo Neruda. I've said recently that I've taken an interest in improving my understanding of Spanish, and this fortunately is a bilingual edition from Penguin Classics. So this is something that may well get read sooner than some of these other ones because it happens to coincide with my current interests. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is number 5. Let's see, what's another one? Oh, here is let me pull another one off the top shelf here. This is a Penguin English Library edition, and this series has kind of a matte cover and a stripy design on the spine, and then this motif that repeats on the cover, similar to what you see on the Penguin cloth-bound classics, and it's the same designer. It's Coralie Bickford Smith. So here, a big part of the reason I bought this is because of the motif is little shuttles, and I believe the main character of this book, which by the way is Silas Marner by George Eliot, the main character, the titular character, is a weaver, and I've said on here before that my wife is a weaver, so I thought it was kind of neat to have these little shuttles on the cover. So if you're not familiar with weaving, this holds a bobbin, which is, you know, a bunch of thread is wound onto it, and you use this to go back and forth between the warp threads to effectively weave. That's how it's done. Did you know that? That wasn't a good explanation of weaving. Let's see. So while we're on the weird Penguin editions, here's one I have of The Wind in the Willows. I think I may have read this or had it read to me as a child, and I went on the Mr. Toad's Wild Ride at Disney World when I was a kid, but I don't really remember much of it. So I'm well overdue to read this, and I've had this book on my shelf for some time, and it's a neat edition. It's the same size roughly as the Penguin, the Deluxe Penguin Classics, so a little taller, and it has the deckled flaps and the French edges, which a lot of people like. But it has the cover design. The illustration is, well, it's sort of embroidery or needlepoint. I don't know really the difference myself, but so this picture of Mr. Toad is done all with thread sewn into some piece of fabric, and then if you open it up and look at the inside of the cover, it shows you the verso of that same design. And the design, and try not to do too much damage to this book, it goes all the way across. So here's his scarf, just keeps going and going and going, which is pretty cool. Anyway, so that was kind of fun. And I think that is number 7 or 6, something. I don't know. Let's see. No, okay, here's something I've had for a very long time. And if you watched the last season of The White Lotus, one of the characters at least was reading this very edition of the Essential Rumi, the great Persian mystical poet. I've had this book for a long time. I think I got it at a Goodwill. I've barely cracked it. I mean, I've looked at it from time to time, but this is something that should be read. Good God. What are you waiting for? while you're waiting to read all the other things that you're supposed to be reading. Um, so I make no apologies. I just okay. We're getting to the end here. This is a book that was on my TBR last year. Did not read it. Didn't put it on my TBR video this year, but maybe But someday. This is Ernest Hemingway's "For Whom the Bell Tolls." Now, this is set in Spain, so maybe that will push it up a bit. I'm a Hemingway liker. Um, I particularly like A Farewell to Arms, and some of the short stories I like quite a bit. And Movable Feast, that's pretty good. So maybe, I guess I like Hemingway, and maybe I ought to read one of his best known works, probably the last of them that I haven't read. So there's that, and then I got that recently, so that doesn't count. Got that recently, so that doesn't count. Okay, I'll finish up with, here's one I've had for over a year. It's a Western that I got last year, thinking I'd read it for June on the Range. Didn't read it for June on the Range this year. Will I ever read it? I don't know. It's Deadwood by Pete Dexter. And I like the TV show, like a lot of people. Never read a Pete Dexter novel, and I've never read Deadwood. So if you've read Pete Dexter, if you like Deadwood, if you like this book in particular, let me know. It seems to have some of the same characters as were on the HBO series, which might have been the best HBO series I ever saw. I like The Wire a lot too, but anyway, that's enough HBO talk for today. Are you like me? Do you not care about that stuff much anymore? Seems like I used to try and keep up with it, and the last thing I watched on the old home box office maximum was The White Lotus, and just wasn't that good. And maybe the new stuff is good also, but I don't know. I've got a limited amount of free time, and I spend most of it reading these days, and I have good intentions, like, oh, that sounds good, I'll watch that on the thing, and I don't. Guess I gotta read The Count of Monte Cristo, for crying out loud. I gotta read Season of Migration to the North. They're not making an HBO adaptation of that anytime soon. If I want to know what's in here, I gotta read it old school, my friends. All right, I've rambled on for long enough. I will say thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.